Principles Show daily podcast by and for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. This week, we're right there with you, digging into the BRICS bloc, especially with all the news about South Africa and their moves in agriculture. They've got a real strategy going on, and today we're going beyond those headlines. We're going to unpack how South Africa plans to use agricultural exports to boost their economy and really cement their place within BRICS.
And we've got a really solid source to guide us.
Oh, for sure.
This article from the BRICS joint website, it's called Essay Agricultural Exports at BRICS Meetings. South Africa's focus gives us a real insider look at their game plan.
It really does. No more waiting. Let's jump right in. Okay, so right off the bat, it's clear South Africa isn't just showing up to these BRICS meetings. They're making a statement, choosing agricultural exports as the central theme, both at those business council meetings in Russia and the big BRICS summit in Kazan. It sends a message.
Yeah.
This isn't just talk. It's strategic.
Absolutely. It really shows they're ready to act, to use this alliance to actually grow their economy. And a big part of that, like the article says, is pushing for lower tariffs between BRICS members.
Now, tariffs, we've all heard the word, but a little refresher never hurts. What's the big deal about lower tariffs, specifically for South Africa's agricultural exports?
Okay, so think about it this way. South Africa, they're known for amazing citrus.
Yeah.
Imagine their oranges trying to get to those supermarkets, let's say in India.
Okay, yeah.
High tariffs, they're like this big tax, making those South African oranges way pricier for someone in India. Lower those tariffs, suddenly those oranges, they're competing. People are more likely to buy them.
So it's about making their products more appealing, more competitive in those BRICS markets smart.
Exactly.
But the article, it doesn't just stop at price. It talks about these non-tariff barriers and these phytosanitary issues. Can you break those down for us a bit?
Sure. Let's start with those non-tariff barriers. These are the things that can trip you up even when the price is right. Imagine this. South Africa sends a massive shipment of grapes to China. Everything's good, right? But then it gets stuck at customs. Some complicated paperwork issue, maybe a regulation that wasn't clear from the start. That's your non-tariff barrier. It's like a bureaucratic speed bump.
Ah, so it's not just about affordability. It's about making the whole trading process smooth, predictable.
Yeah, exactly.
And phytosanitary issues sounds very official. What are we talking about here?
Plant health, basically. Each country, they've got their own rules to stop plant diseases and pests from spreading. So say South Africa wants to export their amazing avocados. They need to prove those avocados meet China's specific phytosanitary standards. And those standards, they can get complex.
So it's more than just having the best fruit. It's navigating this whole world of international regulations. A lot to consider.
Right. It's strategic, and things just got a lot more interesting with BRICS expanding.
Oh.
Bringing in Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, that's huge.
Talk about changing the game. Like suddenly there's this whole new world of potential customers for those South African oranges, grapes, everything.
And not just any customers.
Right.
The article specifically points to those growing middle classes in India and China. Those are prime markets. As their populations grow, so does the demand for good, diverse food.
That's where it gets really interesting because South Africa isn't just looking to sell more. They're trying to tap into a global shift.
Exactly. But having access isn't enough. The article makes that clear. Building relationships, especially with these new BRICS members, that's key.
It's about more than just trade deals. It's about trust, long-term partnerships. How is South Africa approaching that?
Transparency is huge. Clear policies showing they're committed to what BRICS is all about. It's about being genuine. Food security, that's a big deal. These nations need to know they can rely on South Africa.
Like building a foundation, you need that trust for everything else to work.
Exactly. It's showing they're in it for the long haul.
It really highlights how important those relationships are, especially in something as essential as food and agriculture.
For sure. And, it's what makes South Africa's approach so interesting. It's not just about, boosting those export numbers. It's about positioning themselves as a real leader within BRICS. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see that.
When they're pushing for lower tariffs or smoother trade, it's not just self-serving. They're pushing for changes that could help everyone in the bloc.
So they're looking at the bigger picture, aiming to shape BRICS from within.
Exactly.
But what does all this mean on the ground, like for South Africa's own agricultural setup?
Well, the article, it talks about how diverse their exports already are. We're talking fruits, wine, even grains, a whole range of things.
Right, they've got a lot to offer.
And what's really interesting is all that untapped potential.
The article mentioned that, right?
Yeah.
All this land they have that could be used for agriculture.
Exactly. They've got so much land that's just sitting there, underutilized. Imagine if they could bring more of that into play. We could be talking about a huge agricultural boom.
Now that's what I'm talking about. That's real economic impact. More land being used, that's more jobs, more exports, more growth all around.
It is. And the article really highlights that potential for job creation. That's a major benefit. This isn't just some abstract GDP thing. It's about real people, real opportunities.
It's like a win-win, right?
Yeah.
They get to show off what they can do on a global scale, and it directly benefits people back home. Speaking of showing off, we can't talk about South Africa without mentioning the wine. Is that part of this whole export push too?
Absolutely. I mean, South African wine, it's already getting attention for how good it is, the value. They're in a great spot to really grab a bigger chunk of that global market.
It seems like every time we dig a little deeper, there's another opportunity there for them.
That's what happens with a good strategy. Everything connects. It's bigger than just selling, more oranges or wine. They're trying to diversify that whole economy, build jobs, and really become a key player.
It's ambitious, but it seems like they've got a plan. But even with the best products and a clear strategy, there are always challenges. We talked about tariffs, the other barriers, but what about those phytosanitary regulations? How much of a hurdle are those in practice?
They're definitely something to keep in mind. Like we said before, every country has its own rules to protect its agriculture. To meet all those different standards, it takes serious dedication, real quality control.
So it's not just about growing great stuff. They need to prove it meets all those different standards.
Exactly. They need to put money into the systems, the expertise, to make sure their products tick all the boxes every step of the way. From the farms to the shipping containers, all the way to those supermarket shelves.
Sounds like a massive logistical challenge.
It can be, yeah, but it's not impossible. And that's where those relationships with the other BRICS nations are so important.
Makes sense.
If they're talking to each other, being open about those regulations, maybe even working together to make them more similar, it can make things a lot smoother.
So it's a bit of diplomacy, too. It's about finding that common ground, that trust, not just trying to force things through.
Exactly. It's about creating a system that benefits everyone, where that trade just flows because everyone's on the same page.
It really shows you how connected everything is globally when it comes to trade. It's this balance of economics, politics, and making sure everyone feels good about working together.
It really is. And that's what's so interesting about South Africa's strategy. They seem to get that.
Yeah.
It's not about those quick wins, It's about playing the long game. They're setting things up for a future where they're not just along for the ride, they're actually calling some of the shots.
It's like they're thinking 10 steps ahead in a chess match, not just one move at a time. And that seems to fit with what BRICS is all about, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point of BRICS, right? Creating a new system, one where things are shifting, and countries like South Africa, they have a real voice.
It's about shaking things up, realizing the old way of doing things, where just a few countries were in control. It wasn't working for everyone.
Exactly. So BRICS and what South Africa is doing within that, it's part of this move towards like a more balanced world. And agriculture, these exports, it's just one piece of that bigger picture.
So if we're looking at the big picture, what's the one thing our listeners should remember about all of this, about South Africa's plan within BRICS?
They're making a serious play to be a major force in global agriculture.
Okay.
They're not just reacting to what's happening. They're trying to make things happen.
Yeah.
Using their strengths, finding those key partners, pushing for policies that help everyone in BRICS, not just themselves.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long process, of course. There'll be bumps along the way.
There always are when you're trying to change things up.
Exactly. But the payoff, it could be huge for their economy, their place in the world, even for BRICS itself.
It's kind of inspiring when you think about it. They've got this vision, they're not afraid to think big, and they're actually putting in the work. It makes you wonder how this whole focus on agriculture within BRICS might affect their other relationships around the world. Food security is a big deal for so many countries. Could the strategy with BRICS actually give them an advantage in other trade deals? Or will they be pressured to pick sides? Something to think about as this all plays out. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep asking those great questions.